Diadit, Dolcha Kanasatatu. That's hello, welcome, and how are you? My Incogweirdos. It's good to see you guys today. Got a little ADHD in the last video. I think that train kind of ran off the rails. So I will try to keep things a little more together today. I'll do the best I can. I've got Odin One Eye with me to keep a singular eye on me. So with Odin's help, I will maybe bring this video in under 15 minutes today. Let's give it a try. Isn't Odin gorgeous? My oldest son carved him and some of the other Esir. And I liked him so much when I went to visit my son. He sent him to me for my birthday. So Odin One Eye is going to be here with us today. Okay, so I just want to talk about some of my first memories and how they tie into the corporeal contract. Just really briefly, the corporeal contract is believed by some Incogweirdos and some non-Incogweirdos to be a contract that you enter into when you are out of body or non-corporeal, you are in between lives, and you are getting ready to enter into your next lifetime. And some people believe that you make a contract regarding every lifetime that you ever experience. And some of the things that are on the contract would be, who you're coming in as, who your parents are, very important, who your siblings will be, what some of your major life experiences will be, and it explains how you will get at least 2 get out of life free cards. The first one will be presented to you as an infant in case you have changed your mind and want to back out. And the second one is the one that terminates this particular contract and brings you back into the non-corporeal state, so you can then get ready to sign another contract and come back into another life, if you so choose. There may be more than 2 get out of free cards in your corporeal contract, and that just depends on the particulars of your life. So that is my understanding of the corporeal contract, and that is my memory of the corporeal contract. Okay, so my very first memory occurred when I was 3 months old. It was exactly this time of year, September, and it was 1963. My family was living in Edgewood, Maryland, just a few blocks away from Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and all of the pre-MK Ultra mind control experiments that they were doing there. Is that why I'm an Incogweirdo? Maybe. Maybe it's because Frank Zappa lived in the neighborhood. I don't know. But in any case, I was laying in my crib, and I remember this very distinctly, that there were these sheer curtains that were blowing, the windows were open, and the sheer curtains were blowing across my crib and going back and forth like this, and I distinctly remember looking at them and thinking, oh, wonder what they're going to be called this time around. So my first concrete memory is me wondering, me being fully aware of the fact that I was in yet another lifetime, and just wondering how things were going to play out in this particular lifetime. So while I was laying there and I'm trying to grab the curtains, I was supposed to be asleep, but I was awake because I was waiting for something. And I feel this very distinctly. This memory is very clear. I was waiting for, I don't know what it was going to be, but I was waiting for something to come to me and offer me that first get out of life free card on my corporeal contract. So I was just kind of hanging around, trying to stay awake, waiting for that being to show up. so that I could deliver my answer. And as I was sitting there, I distinctly remember thinking about some of my past lifetimes, and I was kind of remembering some of the good things and the bad things, and sort of reflecting on the fact that the good and the bad always seem to even out somehow, So the memory ends for me with this brilliant light filling the room, and it didn't just fill the room, it obliterated the room. And it didn't just like put its arms around me, it subsumed me. I became part of that light, and it was so intense and so brilliant that it just like seared my memory, almost like it cauterized it. But most obviously, my answer was yes, I want to stay, or else I wouldn't be here with you and Odin One Eye today talking about the corporeal contract. So that is my very first memory in this lifetime. So some of the other stuff that I wanted to talk about were, I'm going to talk about just a few more early memories. We lived in Edgewood until I was 3. I think it was right around my 4th birthday that we moved, and we'll get there and I'll tell you what started to happen after we moved. But while I was living in Edgewood with my family, I had my first instances of clairvoyance. The first ones occurred with my dad while I was just starting to crawl. I had this very strong mind link with my father, and I could hear him all the time. I could hear him thinking. I could hear everybody else in the house, but Dad and I had a very strong link and a very strong bond. So I could hear Dad, and he was always losing his slippers. And he would do this thing where he would take them off his feet, and he would put his feet down in front of his slippers, and then when he'd go to stand up, he'd push them underneath of the chair. So his slippers were always ending up under some various furniture. So when I started to crawl, I started to do this thing where I crawled behind the furniture all the time. It's because I was looking for Dad's slippers, and I'd get behind the furniture, and I'd see them, and I'd scooch underneath of the couch or the chair, and I'd push them out so he could find them. So that's one of my first clairvoyant experiences. Another clairvoyant experience that happened in Edgewood is right across the street, just kind of catty corner to our house, there was a really old farm, and they had a bunch of horses in a field. The field seemed huge to me, but it was probably only about 2 or 3 acres, really. And after I got old enough to get out of the crib, I was still in that same room, but I was in a twin bed in that same room with my sister. And one morning I woke up, and I was up against the wall in the bed, and my sister was out on the edge, and the window was like at where my feet would be. So I went over to the window, and I opened up the curtains, and there was a horse right there, like right in front of the window. And I got scared, and I jumped back, and the horse, blew through it, so and he got scared, and he pulled back, and then we both kind of froze, and we looked in each other's eyes, right? And I fell into that horse's eyes, and I experienced that horse's psyche. I saw the horse looking at me, trying to figure out what I was, because, this curtain's coming open in my face, scared it. It's seen humans before, but that was kind of like a different way of seeing a human, and it was scared. But it figured out that I was just a person, so it I could see the horse calming down, and I could feel like what it was like to be a horse, and the horse and I could communicate with each other. So that began my lifelong obsession with horses, thanks to the horses that used to get loose from the farm across the street. And I do remember my sister, there was one of those horses that she loved, and she was constantly berating my parents to let the horse live in our dining room. So that never happened, obviously. So those are two of my first clairvoyant memories. I had my first precognition dream in that house. This was when I was still in the crib. I had a dream about one of my siblings, whom I will not name, who was in a very precarious situation in his life at that time. I, as an infant, had no way to know that this was happening, but in my dream, my father and I were trying to save this sibling of mine from this hellscape. 1963 is way before Beetlejuice came out, and the landscape in this dream looked almost exactly like the hellscape in Beetlejuice. It was like a blasted Armageddon landscape, and the only colors were black and white and red. And all of the structures were like falling down and decaying, and there was ash all over the ground. And my father and I were frantically going from door to door, trying to find my sibling. And I later came to find out that my sibling was in a very intense crisis state at that point, and my father was obviously extremely worried about him. It transferred to me because we had a very strong link, and I had that dream. So that's when I was still a baby in a crib. And my first out-of-body experience, right? This one was fun. I had my first out-of-body experience there, and I was it would have been spring before we moved, so I was a little, I was, going on 4 at that time, and I was out on my front driveway, had this little red tricycle, and I was riding it in circles, and I was going around and around in circles, and my sister was standing on the doorstep in front of me, like she was looking across the street, and I was looking at her and looking at the house, but I was going around and around in circles, and I did it for so long, I hypnotized myself, right? And I floated up out of my body, and I was looking down, and I was watching myself go around and around in circles, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of fun, So I started to float up, and I'm up above the house, and I'm starting to look around, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome, It's like I could see everything. I see my whole neighborhood. And then I looked above my roof. I got above the height of the roof, and there was a rainbow behind our house. And in my body, my corporeal self, still going around in circles, as I'm driving the bike, I just point my finger in front of me, and I go, rainbow. Right? And my sister goes, what? And when she said, what? My attention, my point, my POV sucked back down into my body, and I went, I kind of bounced, and I came back into my body, and she's like, what? And I was like, rainbow. And she's looking across the street, she's looking around the sky, she's like, there's no rainbow. So I walked over to her, and I grabbed her hand, and I walked her around to the back of the house, and voila, there was the rainbow. So that was my first OBE. And I've hardly been back in my body since. It's not a great thing to do. I am trying to be more seated in my corporeal form these days, but it's still a really difficult thing for me to do. So, okay, we're at 15 minutes. Tick, tick, tick. All right, blah, blah, ADHD. But there is one non-psychic Incogweirdo experience that I want to tell you about that happened in Edgewood. Because I'm autistic, when I was little, I could not, and even now, hate the way clothes feel on my body. Like all of my undergarments, my bra, my underwear, my socks, I have to wear them inside out because I cannot handle the seams. They literally cut into my flesh, and they drive me insane. Like I tearing at my clothes all day if I don't, dress like that. But when I was little, you could not keep clothes on me. I was constantly ripping off my clothes, tearing my diaper off, okay? I could not stand the feeling. I mean, I could barely stand the feeling of being inside a body, let alone having things out on the outside of my body, further, like, constricting, my soul, my energy. It was all too much stimulation. I just couldn't handle it. So, constantly, taking my clothes and my diapers off, and well, my mom didn't know it, but I knew how to unlock the door. I knew how to get out of my house, even when the door was locked. The front door could be locked and the screen door could be locked, but I knew how to get out. So I had a little friend across the street. She also did not like clothing. So our thing was that we would meet together in the middle of the street, and we would tear off all of our clothes, and we would run naked down the street. So I have this very clear memory of, like, I can see the door, I can see the, like, thing where I put my finger in to unlock the screen door. I walk out the screen door, I look across the street, there's Fruit Loop, that was her name. And I ran across the street, tore off my diaper, I ran across the street, and me and Fruit Loop go running down the street. So that's a non-psychic Incogweirdo memory. And just to wrap it up, my mom once told me that during one of my naked sojourns, I ran all the way down to Route 40, Chopper Road, and I got somehow across 2 lanes of traffic and into the median, and a policeman picked me up running naked down the median in Chopper Road. And he brought me back home and apparently admonished my mother that she'd better freaking change the locks on the door, because if he caught me running naked down the street again, he was gonna take me away. So those are some of my first memories in Incogweirdos, and I would love to hear yours. Please share with me and Odin of the One Eye. He wants to hear your stories. He actually knows all your stories because he hung up upside down on the world tree, and he knows all the stories already. But tell him anyway. He'd love to hear, and I'd love to hear. Well, Terra Incogweirdos, it was great seeing you today. I did promise a psychic experiment at the end of every video, and I'm going over a little long, but I am going to, we're going to do the same thing we did in the last video. I'm going to look at a picture of something, and I'm going to look at you, and you write down in the comments below what you think I was looking at. All right, so let's learn to enhance our psychic abilities, which we all have. Okay, so I'm going to look at the picture. Okay, now I'm looking at you. Picture. And you, beautiful Incogweirdos. And the picture one more time. Okay. All right. Please respond. I wanna see if this is gonna work. So let's give it a go. All right. So I'm just gonna sign off. Me, Odin, and Noodle from the Gorillas. Gonna sign off for today, and gonna leave you with: if somebody calls you a weirdo, what do? You say, "Thank you." Slangafall. Okay, can't turn off the video. Oh.